Welcome to Interdisciplinary Data Humanities Initiative. I'm Marcelina Nogales, and this is Jose Hernandez. So, like I said, I'm Marcelina Nogales. I am the application specialist at the Research Computing Center, and I'm a member of the software team.
Yeah. My name is Jose Hernandez. I am also part of the software team at the RCC, and I am the Digital Humanities Technology Specialist. I just joined this year, and it's great to be here.
Oops.
Okay, so before we get into what is the IDHI initiative at RCC, we're going to talk about a bit about what is data humanities. So data humanities has two basic definitions. It's either the application of digital methods to humanities research or the studying the impact of the digital world on humanities disciplines. Most of the time, it is a combination of both. Here at RCC, we mostly just work with the first one. So it is the application of digital methods to humanities research. And this image right here, you can see a bit of the technologies that encompass what we call data humanities. So if you worked with us before or with data humanities before, you know, we do stuff with OCR scans, XML and TEI, our research infrastructures, metadata, et cetera. And all these come together to form what is called data humanities. Yeah.
Okay. So the reason for the Interdisciplinary Data Humanities Initiative is to invoke HPC support for digital humanities and data humanities. So the reason why we need that is not only for the prevalence of big data, the large digital collections in terms of storing and housing them on our systems, but to show machine learning tools and AI tools that could be utilized for digital humanities research. A lot of the times when you're doing big data research, you have file size limitations that can change whether or not you can house them on your local computer. So high performance computing hopes to support larger file size. And then and when it comes to storing, not only storing the files that are large, but also sharing them within a classroom, this allows you to have a playground of high performance computing that can kind of that you can kind of break, but you don't have to worry about using your local systems and then having to fix everything that way.
Yeah, so the purpose of the Interdisciplinary Data Humanities Initiative is to foster and encourage the presence of humanities, social sciences, and arts researchers and faculty within our HPC systems. For this, we are building an architecture that ensures not only the success of these projects, but that they continue throughout the years. It is our goal that the projects that are started on the HPC systems don't just disappear throughout time, but they are able to evolve with our provided services. In addition, we hope that the education, including this workshop, become reproducible and long-lasting outside of any curriculum changes that may occur at the university level or in any of the programs at FSU.
So just to get into a little bit of the history of digital humanities at FSU, we started off with a Digital Scholars Reading Group and Co-Laboratory in 2013, which allowed for a lot of guest speakers to come in that are digital humanists that are prominent within the field and to discuss the trends of digital humanities. In 2015, there was the program of Interdisciplinary Humanities, which not only had a concentrated undergraduate minor, but also a master's in digital humanities. FSU hosted a Invisible Work in the Digital Humanities Symposium in 2017, and then the DEMOS project in the Data Humanities did a similar thing to what we were trying to do, and they did that in 2018, where they brought together a lot of different people doing digital humanities research and data humanities research for collaboration and networking. The other FSU organizations supporting digital humanities research, besides the Research Computing Center, is the Office of Digital Research and Scholarship, located in the basement of Strozier, and then Immersive Scholarship, which is also located in Strozier, and they're specifically doing a Photogrammetry Institute workshop across spring semester. So that's the history of digital humanities at FSU. In terms of the history of high performance computing at FSU, it started off as the Supercomputing Computations Research Institute in 1984, when FSU got their first supercomputer in 1985, and this was specifically for faculty and students in physics and biology. In 2007, they changed their name to Shared HPC Facility, which by then they were developing and adding more to the supercomputer, which was not only run with the Department of Scientific Computing, but has now expanded to a multidisciplinary resource for all FSU researchers. And then in 2013, changed its name once again to the Research Computing Center, separated from the Department of Scientific Computing. And it's as we know it now today, where we hope to foster even more multidisciplinary research with the help of the Interdisciplinary Data Humanities Institute.
Yeah, so this initiative has three main components. The first of these is specialized software. So we try to install and maintain software designed specifically for the digital humanities, and we'll be going over some of these particular softwares later today. We provide research support, which means that we counsel large projects that are hosted on our system, and we hope that these projects that we counsel on serve as models for future work by either students or faculty. And the third component of IDHI is the teaching resources. So we provide workshops such as this one and in-class services that help integrate the use of new tools into the curriculum given in FSU's classes. Yeah.
So the specialized software that we have can be split into three different categories: data organization, data manipulation, and data curation. Specifically, we'll be talking today about OpenRefine, which is a data organization tool, Agisoft Metashape, which is a data manipulation tool, and also ExistDB, which is a data curation tool. And that's how we've chosen to organize these softwares. Some of these are already on our systems for the use for our researchers, but we want to create specialized software specifically for IDHI, depending on the usage of the data humanists that are using our system.
So before we get into the components and the specific softwares that we can use, we're gonna explain fast how does the general HPC workflow look. So if you follow up there, you can see that your PC logs into the login node at the HPC, and then it submits a job, which is the files or the different code that you're submitting in, and then the Slurm scheduler basically partitions your job into our cluster, and it runs the job and returns the results back to your login node. And this all happens from your computer. If you log in to we'll talk later how to log into our systems through multiple ways. So you'll see, but we'll talk about it later, how you can actually log in from your PC into the HPC system.
Yeah, so there are two ways to use the high-performance computer. There's the graphical interface, which is open on demand, and we actually have an entire workshop dedicated to utilizing open on demand, but this is a graphic user interface that allows you to open either a desktop or specific applications, so Jupyter Notebook, RStudio, and then MATLAB. And so that way you don't have to start it up on your own systems, and you can just run on using that same job scheduler. So you can run it for an hour or so using the multiple CPUs and nodes. We also have the command line interface, which is through the terminal. And then those that are listed there are different command lines that you can SSH into the supercomputer. So again, the same way that Jose mentioned previously in terms of accessing the supercomputer login node from your computer to submit jobs and then receive results. But these are just two ways to use a high performance computer, and we'll actually get into the three specific softwares that I mentioned before, starting with OpenRefine.
Yeah. So this that you see here is just a screenshot from how the OpenRefine looks. Before this, it was called Google Refine. So the goal of this software is to let you parse through big collections of text. In this case, here is a CSV, comma separated value file that contains multiple citations from a text, 70,000 different citations. For each of these, you have not only the number and the citation, but also you have the file it's in and the category that the researcher identified it as. So for each of these, we have different ways that we can edit it and parse through it that would traditionally require us to know how to either code it in Python or other languages to be able to separate it in the way that OpenRefine lets you without knowledge of coding. So here we see that we apply what we call a text filter. So you're able to click and write the matching text, and just like a search browser, it will give you the matching records. In this case, we went down from 69,000 records down to 2,500 records that had the exact text .sit. And then it also lets you add even more filters and transformations. So in this case, if you see there, it's pulled down the tab, so you can edit cells, edit the columns, and you can apply common transformations or transpositions. For the transformations, you can transform specific words into other words. You could divide one value into two. You could make all the words uppercase or lowercase, and there's just many variations that you can do and apply to all the records at one time, which is something that traditionally could not be done without a knowledge of coding. Okay, so the second software that I want to show you guys is XSDB, which is an open source XML database. And it allows you to host different systems on it. For us, we've been playing with a specific software called TEI Publisher, which lets you edit TEI XML documents. For those of you who don't know, TEI XML documents are used a lot in digital humanities to code big texts and to give different ID tags for each thing within a text. It is a standard international format that can be sent from researcher to researcher and is mutually understandable. So in this case, we added a collection of 900 different newspapers, and we created a parsable website for it. So you're able to go through this and select the partial issue if you want to see completed issues, or if you want to see newspapers that talk just about the weather, or if you want to query for a specific word, let's say like oranges or bananas, it don't matter. And TEI Publisher lets you do this with extreme ease, and it's already on our systems. Yes.
And then before we move on from that last slide, this is an example of the Digital Egyptian Gazette newspaper project that we were working on to house multiple newspapers with different dates, and then to organize each of the features that are on the newspaper, because not all the newspapers have every single feature. And yeah, so that's also part of our, I guess, leading into our collaboration with researchers. And then lastly, this software is called Agisoft Metashape. It's a 3D modeling software for photogrammetry. I've talked about it previously in the Photogrammetry Institute meetings in January, but it basically takes photos that have been taken surrounding a specific object or landscape, and you can input all of these photos into the software, and it will create not only a cloud of data points, but eventually a full mesh with color, depending on the photos that you've taken, to create a 3D model. And this can be of something that, like in particular, photogrammetry is done with stuff that already exists, but then you can combine it in other softwares with things that are created virtually. For the HPC, we currently have multiple versions installed. The Metashape Pro is just the demo version, but you can test this out before having it installed or running on your computer. And then the standard one provides a little bit less features than the Pro, but it is a license that we currently have that's able to be used by anyone who's interested in using photogrammetry. And then before we shift to the next component of IDHI, it's important to note that this is not the only thing that can go on our systems. If there's any interest in any software, I think we are looking into just getting more software that digital humanists are using that could be utilized for their research, because that's because the Research Computing Center is here to facilitate any and all research that we can.
Okay. So in terms of already completed projects that we have done in terms of research support, the first one would be a collection that we did, the previous collection I showed you guys of the newspapers. That was a digital Egyptian Gazette run by Dr. Will Hanley of the History Department, and it resulted in the previous website that you saw. For political science, we have worked with PhD candidate Giulia Venturini on her study of Italian elections. So for her, we actually consulted on making a web scraper on Python that allowed us to grab the information from the 7 past elections of the legislative chambers of Italy. So it allowed us to see all the candidates and their years of birth and et cetera information.
The last one is research that we're doing with the Department of English with Dr. Graben. Link women pedagogues as a data discovery tool. So using the information that we've found in databases of women pedagogues from the late 19th century in rhetoric, writing, and media. And so right now we're taking all of that data that we have and creating network graphs. So as you can see here, the network graph is a blue and green format of the different roles and the different pedagogues that are within this current database, and just creating multiple different visualizations to come up with more research questions. So our final component of IDHI is the teaching resources aspect of it. So currently we house and host a lot of traditional workshops within the Research Computing Center, such as Intro to HPC, Linux, our Slurm, which is the job scheduler that we mentioned before, and then Python Bootcamp, which is an 8-hour, a full day boot camp to go through the basics of Python. We're hoping to not only transform and modify these traditional workshops for specifically for those in data humanities, but also creating specific software introduction workshops such as OpenRefine, Tesseract, and this workshop right here.
So even though this is not an explicit component that we state when we started the workshop, we would like IDHI to also foster a culture for digital humanities within HPC. Traditionally, digital humanities has not been part of the user base for high performance computing systems, not only at FSU, but at most universities across the United States. So we hope that the tools that we provide become foundational blocks that allow not only researchers, but faculty in their classrooms to incorporate the tools by using HPC. In addition, the teaching resources we develop, like this workshop and the previous mentioned workshops, Marcelina, will ensure a long-lasting effect on the humanities, social sciences, and arts community. So you can reference to these resources even if you're not doing HPC, but they are there to serve you and your research. Yes.
In terms of our current progress for the interdisciplinary data humanities, we started in fall 2022, and we've installed 3 open on-demand tools, OpenRefine, Tesseract, and Metashape. We've consulted and had a pilot project in multiple departments, history, political science, and English, as well as we're working on a consultation right now with a PhD student in criminology. And And you guys have all seen the ExistDB text collection of the 900 newspapers. We are housing a VM specifically for IDHI, as well as 6 in-class lectures outside of the workshops that we host for IDHI. A lot in a combination of Intro to HPC as well as Intro to IDHI and computational linguistics, and then 2 lectures in musicology, 1 on data visualization and 1 on web development. And then, of course, later in the semester, we'll have an Intro to R workshop and Python Bootcamp, which will be in March. And lastly, we have done collaboration with the Photogrammetry Institute, not only in installing multiple softwares on our system, but also the talks in January.
Yeah. So finally, we just want to talk a bit about the long-term goals that we have for IDHI. So firstly, we hope that by installing these softwares, creating documentation for them and the teaching resources, that we create the ability for HSSA projects to conduct research with less to none facilitator intervention from us, similar to how now hard science projects run on RCC. So we hope that you will come to us for support when needed, but we hope that most faculty and students can start projects with an easier fashion than they have today. So if we have these softwares installed, that would cut the work in half for both you and us, so you can access these tools easier. The second would be connected to the first, was just to have up-to-date and innovative software, but tailored specifically for data humanities, not to repurpose the software from the sciences or from other disciplines into data humanities, because that does not always tend to give the best results. The third is to increase the frequency of in-class workshops, which we have been doing steadily throughout the semesters here, and to and the boot camps that we're hosting to support the faculty and the students in the humanities, social sciences, and arts. And lastly, we hope to foster inter-institution collaboration by hosting a week-long workshop on high-performance specific work in the humanities sometime in the next year or 2. Yeah.
And then more information on the week-long workshop. Not only do we want to make sure that data humanists know how to use high-performance computing, but also those that are in high-performance computing, hoping to facilitate more research within their high-performance computers, know how to teach in a format that makes sense for data humanists, as well as how we've been teaching it before. If you have any questions outside of this talk, feel free to reach out to us at support@rcc.fsu.edu. And then thank you for coming to our talk.